What's up, and welcome back to the Unathletic. When we were last with you, we discussed something that we never thought we'd ever see, and that is Arsene Wenger stepping down at Arsenal Football Club.
Never thought we would discuss it. That is true.
Yeah, but returning to the States and the great American pastime that is baseball, and it's no secret that Ben absolutely loves baseball.
And so do you.
I do, but I don't think I love it as much as you do.
I do love baseball.
It's just I don't even know if I love anything as much as you love baseball. That was a joke, by the way, Mom. Anyway, it was a really interesting week, a really exciting week in baseball. And I mean, started off, well, the big thing was Saturday night in Oakland. Sean Manaea tossing a no-hitter against my Boston Red Sox. And I mean, he was dominant. He walked 2, had 10 strikeouts, and for him to no-hit the what honestly had been the best team and the best offense in baseball is very, very impressive.
Yeah, the Red Sox were coming in hot. They had just swept the Angels, and we were all looking at that matchup as those had been the 2 best teams so far this season, and the Red Sox just steamrolled them all weekend. So I was really surprised that Sean Manaea, even though Sean Manaea this season has been fantastic, I was really surprised that he was able to shut down the Red Sox like he was able to do. But Nate, you mentioned that you're a big Red Sox fan. That's no secret on this show. I mean, your Red Sox, you've been feeling so good about the Red Sox going, all season long so far, but now they just got no hit. So how are you feeling after this no-hitter?
Honestly, I was watching it and I wasn't even that mad. I was watching it with my dad, and my dad was cheering for the guy to throw the no-hitter, and I was like, hey, it's whatever. If he throws a no-hitter, congratulations to him. I mean, look, when you got 17 wins and it's April 23rd, you can't really be complaining about much, and I think that he's just that day that guy was better. And so, much respect to Manaea for doing something. I mean, if it takes a no-hitter to beat the Red Sox, then you just put your hands up, you tip your cap and say, hey, congratulations to you, buddy.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to acknowledge Sean Manaea, like I was saying earlier, and how dominant he's been, not only in this start, but this whole season. He's really emerged as the ace of that Oakland staff. He was traded to Oakland from Kansas City in that Ben Zobrist trade in, I believe that was 2016. Yeah. So kind of and we've seen where the Royals are right now. I think the Royals have like 4 or 5 wins, so... I mean, the Royals...
It's okay, Ben.
It's all right. The Royals got that championship, but Sean Manaea is really just coming into his own right now. And I think it's important to acknowledge that he just... I think what makes that no-hitter so impressive is he did it against the Red Sox, like arguably the best team in baseball right now.
It's the first time the Red Sox had been no-hit since 1990.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Unbelievable.
And, I think talking about Sean Manaea and the A's, I think the A's as a whole are a better team than people give them credit to be. I think they have a young corner infield, Matt Chapman at third base, Olsen at first base, and they have the real Chris Davis in left.
Chris with a K.
Yeah, Chris with a K. He had a home run last night as well. And he's just a really good player. But do I think the A's are going to make a playoff push, even though a kind of win like this can really instill a lot of confidence in a team? I don't think so. They're still in the same division as the Astros. They still have the Angels to play against, even though they got rocked by the Red Sox over the weekend. I think the Angels are a better team than the A's are. And, you never know about the Rangers. You got Bartolo Colon every 5th day with that kind of movement. Colon also had a no-hitter into like the 7th inning, I think.
In the 8th inning, yeah.
In his last start.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about near no-hitters, definitely Colon, that was really, turning back the clock in that way. But Nate, you mentioned the Red Sox. They're your team. We did in our baseball preview show before the season even started. You had your doubts about the Red Sox, especially with the moves that the Yankees have made. But so, how are you feeling right now with the Red Sox in the lens of what has gone right in your eyes for the Red Sox to have been so successful so far this season?
I'm feeling so great about the Red Sox. Like even with you go to Oakland and you lose 2 out of 3, you're like, yeah, that sucks. But like I said earlier, it's April 23rd and you got 17 wins. Can't really be complaining about much. And I think that it's made even better with the fact that like the Yankees have been struggling. So we're really kind of building that gap in between us and the Yankees. And I think that there's just been so much going right with the Red Sox, and I think that it's really started with the starting pitching. And this is something that you and I talked about going into the season. Yeah. You had your doubts about the Red Sox starting pitching, and I said I thought the Red Sox starting pitching was going to be good, and it's been very good. And I think when you got got Chris Sale, you got David Price, you got Rick Porcello, have all pitched extremely well this year. And
no, Chris Sale does not have Cy Young Award, right?
Well, you have the last 2 Cy Young Award winners. You got 2 Cy Young Award winners and then a Cy Young runner-up from last year.
Yeah.
So
I think it's amazing that Chris Sale is not the Cy
out
Young winner out of
those
three.
Chris Sale's, the one that doesn't have a Cy Young. But I mean, look, I don't expect all these guys to finish with sub-2 ERAs or ERAs all in like the low 2s, but I do expect the starting pitching to continue to go at least 6 innings. And I think when you can go 6 to 7 innings, you're giving your bullpen innings off. And I think that is one weakness with the Red Sox is the bullpen. Because, I just don't trust, as much as I love Joe Kelly for him beating up Tyler Austin, I still do not trust Joe Kelly. The only guy in the bullpen I trust to come in and nail down outs is Craig Kimbrell. And he's a guy who, he's really more of a 1-inning guy or a 4-out guy. He's not going to come in the 8th inning and get you 6 outs. Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to be important for the starting pitching to continue to go deep into games and maybe not even have to worry about the bullpen, just go straight to Kimbrell. But the one thing you don't have to worry about with the bullpen is that if the offense is scoring a ton of runs and you got huge leads, doesn't matter what the bullpen does because you're just going to keep scoring runs. I mean, in Anaheim, the Red Sox outscored the Angels 27-3.
It's amazing.
27-3. And the Red Sox have hit 5 grand slams this year.
Yeah.
I don't think they hit a grand slam the last 2 years.
Mookie hit 3 home runs over the weekend.
It's just absolutely incredible what this offense is doing. And they're doing it without Xander Bogaerts and without Dustin Pedroia. So I think that once these guys come back, JD Martinez is really starting to heat up. I think that once this offense can start firing on all cylinders and is completely healthy, it's gonna be tough for opposing pitchers because look at the Red Sox offense 1 through 9. There's really not a weakness, I don't see any weaknesses. Even Jackie Bradley Jr., if he's hit 9th, he was smoking the ball in Anaheim. So I really don't see any weaknesses with this Red Sox lineup when everyone's firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, and you mentioned the bullpen maybe being a point of weakness for the team.
That could be something that they may have to do at the deadline.
At the deadline, yeah.
But they also got Tyler Thornburg coming back pretty soon, so hopefully Tyler Thornburg is going to be coming back pretty soon, and he can kind of come in that 8th inning role and maybe be a setup man. So that is something that they might have to do at the deadline, though. We'll wait and see what happens.
Yeah, and so, it sounds like you're super confident about the Red Sox. So do you have them cruising to the division title at this point? I mean, it seems like they're just smoking everyone in the AL East.
So I said at the beginning of the season the Red Sox are not going to win the division. I now think that they will win the division, but they're not going to cruise to the division. Eventually, the Red Sox are going to go through their struggles, and there's no way the Yankees are going to stay playing this poorly. Eventually, the Yankees are going to pick it up. The Red Sox are going to hit their not fall off a cliff, but they're going to go through
come back to reality.
Thank you. And so it's going to be close, but I do think the Red Sox will win the division.
Got it. And I think from there, we were earlier talking about Sean Manaea and his no-hitter. We had a near no-hitter by none other than your guy, Tyson Ross.
Tyson Ross, man. I was watching this. I was really hoping for it. Was 4 outs away from
Against
the first no-hitter in Padres history. That's right, against the Diamondbacks. And only team in baseball to not throw no-hitter, the San Diego Padres. It's very sad.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable. Like, even teams like the Tampa Bay Rays and the Florida Marlins, like teams that have only been in existence for like a little over 20 years, have no-hitters. And the Padres have been around since, I believe, the late 60s.
1969, I think.
Yeah, so. So the fact that we don't have a no-hitter is kind of disgraceful. But anyways, yeah, so you were watching the game.
I was, yeah. And Tyson Ross, he was looking good. Made me think I was living in 2014, how good he was looking. But I was watching this game, and I really, around this, after he finished the 6th inning, I was like, oh, dang. He's pitching well. Of course, you don't want to say what he's actually doing because, that can jinx it. Mm-hmm. But I really started to believe around the 6th inning. And then after the 7th inning, I was like, oh, my gosh, he's going to do it. And then he walked the first batter in the 8th inning and then struck out Alex Avila with 1 out in the 8th. And I think that is where Andy Green should have taken him out of the game. Should have taken him out of the game right then and there. And I think getting the combined no-hitter is more important than even if it would have been the first no-hitter in franchise history, a combined no-hitter is still a no-hitter. So I would have taken him out at that point because after that he wound up with 2 outs in the inning, ended up giving up a double that lost the no-hitter. And the Padres did go on to win the game 4-1, but it was disappointing to not see the first no-hitter in Padres history.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, Ross, at that moment where he gave up the double, he had thrown 127 pitches. And this is a guy who has been hurt over the past few years.
Injury, yep.
And so, that's a hefty workload for a guy who, has come off of injury, may not be at full strength yet to encounter that kind of high pitch count. But, I mean, what I will say is I support... As a Padre fan, I supported him staying out there because I think the Padres, if we're being honest with everyone, they're not going to be doing much damage this year. Even, as much as Christian Villanueva wants to put the team on his back and just carry the team, like it's going to be another playoff-less year for the San Diego Padres. And so I think seeking history in terms of the best possible outcome of a guy throwing a, not a team no-hitter, but an individual no-hitter, I think that was what the team should have been going for at the time. So I did support Andy Green's move to leave him out there. And again, the Padres did win the game, so no harm, no foul. But yes, definitely as close as we've come in a while. I believe the other time we came super close, I think Chris Young was 1 out away in like 2005 or something.
I know Despaigne went like 7 no-hit innings once.
Oh, Dresimir Despaigne. What a name. Oh man, forgot about that guy.
One day the Padres. I never thought the Padres were gonna have a cycle, and now they've got 2, Matt Kemp and Will Myers. So one day, Ben.
Yeah, we never thought that we would be talking about Arsene Wenger stepping down on this show, and I think that's an equivalent conversation. We I don't think expect to ever talk about a Padres no-hitter sometime, but who knows? Maybe it could happen this year. Maybe it could happen, sometime soon. Definitely.
I think now that we talk about things that we never thought would happen, Arsene Wenger walking away, the Padres potentially throwing a no-hitter, I think that once those two things, one of those things has already happened. Once that second thing happens, I think the world just might end. I think that might actually be the second coming. So
yeah.
Who knows? Just be on the lookout for that. But Ben, you were actually gone this past week.
I was.
You were in Chicago.
I was.
Do you want to tell? First off, I think it should be known why you were in Chicago and what good thing has happened to you recently. I think that should be something that the listeners should know.
So, shifting the conversation a little bit. Yeah. So over the past week, I missed like a week of school. I went out to Chicago. I went to a Cubs game, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I've had the fortunate opportunity. I'm going to be going to graduate school out in Chicago, so I was just checking out the program. I've officially committed, so I'm graduating this year and moving out to Chicago in the fall. So I was just out there, kind of getting a lay of the land and checking out the program a little bit more. So yeah,
where are you going to grad school? I think that should be.
I'm going to Northwestern.
That is
Northwestern University. So
that is a very fine institution.
Thank you.
Particularly for journalism.
I appreciate it. But while the program was great and I had an awesome time with that, I was out there for the Cubs game. I went to the Cubs game, and I'm working for you listeners at home. I'm all about the sports. You know that, guys. So. I was at a Cubs versus Cardinals game, and it got rained out. I was supposed to go on a Wednesday, and then it got rained out, and then so we ended up going on a Thursday. So the Wrigley Field was like half full. This was my second time at Wrigley. The first time I had went was when I was really young, and so I didn't remember anything. So this was kind of like my first time at Wrigley, and I can say all this stuff about cliche stuff. Oh, you can feel the history, and oh my God, it was so beautiful, which it was, but. I think the bigger picture here was the Cubs won that game 8-5. They were up 8-2 at one point, and their bullpen was kind of imploding. And we saw that over the weekend with the Cubs against the Rockies in Colorado. Their bullpen was sort of coming apart at the seams. Guys like Steve Cishek, Carl Edwards Jr. just not being able to get it done. And the Cubs, I think last year was also a testament to like kind of the post-World Series hangover of just trying to rediscover that confidence and rediscover. I don't think they have a chip on their shoulder like they used to of being the franchise never, have not won a world championship in over 100 years. That's a huge chip on your shoulder to carry with you. So, I think big picture, we can talk about the Cubs a little bit and just sort of like where we think they're at. Chris Bryant, stud, USD alum, definitely. He can only carry the team so far. So Nate, I want to ask you, do you think the Cubs have what it takes? Because they're sitting right around 500, a little bit below 500 right now. Do you think they have what it takes to make the playoffs this year?
I think so. I think that this Cubs team is too talented to not make the playoffs. And, there's still a long way to go this season. And, yeah, they're struggling a little bit, but they're not the first team to struggle in April, and they surely won't be the last Major League team to struggle in April and finally get their act together and make the playoffs. So I think they will make the playoffs just because too much talent on this Cubs team to not make the playoffs. What about you, Ben?
I honestly, they haven't looked good. I don't have a lot of confidence in them winning the division. I could see them potentially being a wild card team at this point in the season. I think their pitching has been suspect. Guys like Yu Darvish have not pitched well. Quintana has been a absolute bust. He pitched all right in Colorado yesterday, but again, with the shaky bullpen, you definitely need that starting rotation to kind of hold it down, kind of like the Red Sox have been doing. And so that could have been the Cubs' kind of plan to go into the season. And when you're relying on guys like Pedro Strop to hold a lead, that's never a good thing. And so especially since the Cardinals and the Brewers are two very good teams, especially the Brewers, they're a much improved team versus last year, acquiring guys like Christian Yelich and Lorenzo Cain. And both those guys have been fantastic so far. And I think the Pirates have been better than advertised. They took 2 out of 3 in Chicago earlier this year. And so I think if the Pirates stay, at least somewhat relevant through a big chunk of the year, that's... most teams in the division are either as good or better than the Cubs. And for me, I think that's just too tall a mountain to climb for the Cubs to win the division this year. And I think overall, therefore, there was one team I didn't mention in the NL Central, and that's the Reds. I think the division winner, it's going to come down to who can beat up on the lowly Reds the most. The Reds, a team that has fired their manager 11 games into the season. And I think they have 3 or 4 wins so far. They kind of have the inverse record of what the Red Sox have done so far. They've been the polar opposite. They've been such a disaster. So I think the winner of the NL Central, it's going to come down to whoever can just beat the Reds to a bloody pulp, sort of to paint that awful picture. But
poor Joey Votto.
Yeah, man.
Poor Joey Votto.
He signed that huge extension there, and he's really, since those couple playoff years where he had Brandon Phillips and guys pre-injury Homer Bailey, aka Christian Bale and Batman lookalike Homer Bailey, those teams were good, and I think Joey Votto was feeling good about being in Cincinnati since he's a homegrown player. But wow, he's really not. He's had to deal with some tough circumstances over the past few years. So it'd be interesting to see if Joey Votto, because I think he's started to express his distaste of being on the Reds in recent times, because that team isn't going to be good anytime soon. I think Nick Senzel is a third base prospect that they have right now. He's sort of that minor league system isn't very highly rated, so they pretty much only have one really good position player prospect. Their rotation's a mess. So it'd be interesting for me to see if Joey Votto eventually was dealt, or
maybe at the deadline to a team that can use some offense.
And even though I believe he's 32 or 33 years old, he is. He
was an MVP candidate last year.
Yeah, so finished runner up. I think it was the closest MVP race that we had in a while. I thought he deserved the MVP over Stanton last year, if I'm being completely honest, just based on pure production alone. And I think especially since both Stanton and Votto were on pretty bad teams last year, I think Votto was the one who deserved to come out on top.
Nolan Arenado was robbed.
Yeah,
I'll never let that go. Go back to one of our early shows.
Yeah, I know. We definitely. I think both of us were like, Arenado's got it, and then he wasn't even in the top 4 or something crazy like that. But it's definitely, I think, a tall mountain to climb for the Cubs.
It's interesting for the Cubs. One of the things I remember when they won that World Series in, what was it, 2016? They won the World Series.
It's
2016, right?
Yeah.
They won the World Series in 2016, and I saw people were like, "Oh my gosh, this is the worst the Cubs are going to be for the next 5 years. The Cubs are going to become a dynasty, and this and that." And I'm like, why I hate that so much. And this is just a general thing about sports. It's like, oh, when one team wins and they've got a lot of talent, oh, why even play them? They're just going to win the World Series the next 5 years. No, if that's how it is, why do we even play the game? Exactly. And I think that what we're seeing with the Cubs is, like you said, that post-World Series hangover, because you win the World Series and you might get complacent, because it's like once you're fighting to get to the top, you fight to get to the top. Once you get to the top, it's like, all right, I've been to the top, and maybe you lose a bit of that drive to get back to the top. And other teams are now pulling at you trying to get to the top. So I think that is that post-World Series hangover, particularly for a team that hadn't won the World Series in such a long time, like over a century. I think that post-World Series hangover is a real thing. I really think you're getting at something there.
Yeah, and I think beyond just the hangover, when sports journalists and commentators alike were saying exactly that the Cubs are going to be this dynasty that's going to be around for years to come, because young guys like Chris Bryant, Javier Baez, Albert Almora Jr., who actually has been a bright spot this season so far for the Cubs, they really didn't have any pitching prospects.
No,
and I think we've seen that this season, and that's really been them in, kind of just been their weakest link. And I think in order to address that, that's where they've spent their money in free agency. But John Lester's getting older. Yu Darvish hasn't been effective. Jose Quintana has not been effective at all. And, Kyle Hendricks has been sort of their most consistent starter. But beyond their starting five, zero minor league depth. You got a guy like Tyler Chatwood as your 5, who's like kind of a stereotypical 5 starter. Really not all that good. So, yeah, I definitely think we were with the whole hype of the World Series and breaking the curse and all kinds of stuff, we were bought in to believe that the Cubs are better than they actually are.
Yeah, I think there definitely is something to that. So I enjoyed talking about baseball with you, and I know talking about baseball with you is always a good time because I know it's something that you truly love. So when we come back, we'll let you know who's riding the bus this week, and it's someone interesting. It is someone very interesting. It is someone that I truly love, and I hate to do it to him, but
you're gonna do it anyway.
Do it to him anyway, yeah. So we'll give all that to you and more when we get back. Like what you're hearing? Well, I've got news for you. You no longer have to wait a whole week to hear from your favorite sports personalities. Hi, I'm Nate Wiggins, and Ben Friedel and I have got you covered. Give our show, The Unathletic, a sports podcast, a listen. We release new episodes every Monday and are committed to bringing you the best content. That's right, the very best content.